Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Okay. Normal small.
Normal small.
That's what they say in Ghana when it's like I'm fine. Normal small.
Normal small. Very cute. I like it. Normal, yeah. In the middle of other coding, so yeah. But happy just cracked a complex case of TypeScript type inference. So there's these moments in coding where like, yeah, I did it.
Yeah. I'm setting up a new developer onboarding someone, and I'm like kind of pair programming, setting him up in his environment, and so it's like we're having the thrill of, oh, it's a new error now. We fixed the old problem, and now there's a different error.
Yay. Yes. That is frequent. Well, that's the joy of development. And sometimes it's a joy when you find something really obscure. I mean, even debugging can be fun. It can be extremely frustrating at times. But I remember somebody telling me about solving these really, really awful problems. Hi, Stephen.
Hello.
Hello. How you doing?
I am good. Just have been writing documentation for the most part of the day, one of these days, but it needs to happen.
Yeah, and I've been coding, and I was just about to share these terrible debugging heroic stories. Just
debugging heroics? What is that?
Heroic debugging stories, like when you really feel you did a debug and oh wow, I found it. So somebody at Dropbox, they have these long IDs for the blocks that they pass around Dropbox. And there were occasional errors, like very rare, but they always followed the exact same pattern. And it turned out that it was a bit flip in the block identifier that would be due to, you know, cosmic rays, whatever, random, like the
bit flips are real. That's why we have checksums.
Bit flips are real, and it's like you don't think of those most of the time, but they're looking at the pattern of where the error happened enabled them to see that this is actually a bit flip. It's the real thing. But
there's even what is the what is that attack? The something hammer that works by how do you say it? What's the word? Like not inciting, but works by actually causing a bit flip. Row hammer, I think it's called row hammer or something like that. There's an attack that you can do where you do lots of reads and writes, so that actually you get some sort of magnetic bleed over into other bits that creates a bit flip, and sometimes you can get lucky and use that as kind of like a buffer overflow type thing or whatever to get some illegal reads. Crazy.
Yeah. It's when you're working at scale, you have to worry about these things in a way you don't otherwise. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to thinking in those terms. It's another.
No. That's like Amazon Cloud Services has to worry about.
I mean, eventually we will. But...
Yeah.
Okay, where are we? Yes, you did a great, for the excellent
Yeah, we have a summary for Timothy, because I think a lot of things in that summary were after you left last week. And then we have a meeting agenda even. So
Yeah.
I try to do that most of the time. So I'll go and share the glossary. I think for you, Timothy, the main thing we have to do is go over, well, it's a quick recap. We introduced adjectives after the talk last week. I think everyone was on board with that. So we started out trying to do that. Marc-Antoine and I have started aligning on two, namely immutable and externally referenceable. You can see the color coding here. Blue are adjectives, green are nouns, just for future distinction. So I think we can look at those now. Let's take immutable. Why did it open? Yeah. What is Trello doing?
Opening it in a new tab.
Is it? No, it's refreshing.
No.
I think there's probably a Trello update or something. I keep these tabs open like indefinitely, so probably it was like, hey, it's about time to update Trello. So as you can, oh, Joshua actually also checked off his name here. That's progress. Yeah. So we said immutable is something which can be retrieved using a reference that is guaranteed to always retrieve the same representation of that thing being referenced. As example, matching definitions, well, as examples that match a definition, we have a data structure, which can be retrieved by its identity from a database, and a thing on IPFS. Research articles that I retrieved by the DOI document. What is it actually?
Is it published?
Something. Document object identifier or something like that. Yeah, published is important because Marc-Antoine made the point there that indeed preprints have the same DOI. And then yeah, there's like some addendums you can add to it, but whatever. Once I published, I have a fixed DOI. What does not match a definition exactly is this exception I just highlighted, and then a web page. So any objection or concerns with this definition as an adjective?
So far, so good. There's an edge case example that maybe we can discuss, which would be the Internet Archive web page, a web page on the Internet Archive. You know, it's to be treated as immutable, right? And probably would be maybe our solution for external references when we need to reference something more permanently.
Is it an edge case? Wouldn't like a web page at a certain point in time as stored on the web archive be immutable according to this definition?
Yeah, I call it edge case because a web page seems to cover all web pages, and the Internet Archive itself is a web page, and yet it's kind of trying to be an immutable web page, right? Okay,
let's maybe then, rather than considering an edge case, make clear that a web page here is intended to be a a web page.
Let's put the archive case above an archive of a web page.
Yeah, just say like, yeah, okay. I guess you'd say kind of an active or live web page rather than an archive. Yeah.
Comme ça?
Comme ça.
Okay.
A web page, I think we could add a live web page, but I'm happy to.
By all means,
it's like
what a web page
too generic,
is, right?
and yet we know. Yeah, I can't come. We have to make up new definitions, which would be a waste of time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, go ahead.
Check you off.
Yeah, okay. Go for it.
Next, I'm actually going to move this to consensus already because 5 is as high as we get. 4 is apparently consensus nowadays. Next is externally referenceable, which we landed on to like, yeah, make this distinction between immutability and external referenceability, and then later we'll talk linkability or structurally linkable. We'll get there. First, externally referenceable, something which can be retrieved from outside the system using a locator at a given point in time.
What does that mean at a given point in time?
I have to think back what we meant by that. We can later see whether it's
Maybe
superfluous to
there's
the
an
definition. or
example,
not.
but
I think it's superfluous.
I know why. It's exactly because of the second sentence. In case it stops being retrievable, it is no longer referenceable. So it's simply to highlight that it's not a permanent nature. It can be a temporary thing. Something might be referenceable for only, it's, I think, to distinguish it from immutable, essentially, maybe.
Yeah, but it's insisting that this is a transient state. Something can stop
Yeah.
being something.
I don't think you need to say that. Because I mean, if something can be retrieved from outside the system using a locator, you say it's referenceable. And then suddenly it stops being, you say, oh, well, now it's not referenceable, right? I don't think you need to say.
Yeah, actually,
and
the second sentence.
Say it was referenceable, but now
Yeah.
it's not. You can think, yeah.
I think the second sentence already clarifies the at a given point in time. So we can maybe keep the second sentence and then just remove the at a given point in time. And I think it's still as clear and equivalent to the previous description.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Because it also threw me off what it meant while I was reading it. So I agree, Timothy. I think, are you still satisfied with this, Mike Antoine?
Yes.
Right. So matches definition, a web page with a URL, the URL being the locator. So we don't care about its immutability at this point. All that matters is that it's externally referenceable. The system being the web host here, most likely. A published research paper with a DOI. It happens to be immutable, but again, it's orthogonal. Does not match definition. An internal data structure that is not exposed outside of a system is not externally referenceable outside of that system. This is a heavy one, but the key distinction Mike Antoine wanted to introduce here is the meaningfulness of the externally, like that.
Sure.
Yeah. So we're really talking about like system boundaries here. A paragraph on a past version of a web page which was not archived. That is not externally referenceable because, yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Yep.
A piece of paper on a desk, just as a, yeah, there's no real system here, I would say. What is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we did have an edge case here, apparently, an offline web page that was archived. The old web page is no longer referenceable by the original URL, but maybe referenceable by a web archive URL. So, but I mean, I don't think that's a relevant edge case to dig too deep into for the meaning of this adjective. That's what we concluded, at least.
It's
What's
externally
interesting to me
referenceable.
here, yeah, is the word externally is relative to something. It's external to something, and you know, web page URL is not in the system; it's outside the system, but it's still it's already external and it's referenceable. I have to get this on.
I guess the key notion here is even if it's still referenceable, it's referenceable in a different system.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So the locator is the same, but it's no longer externally referenceable within the original system. It's in a different one, like the archive, for example, in this case.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. It depends on what you mean by the system, right?
It's undefined right now.
Yeah, exactly. But what I'm saying is, sorry, Tim, Stephen was saying here it's referenceable in a different system. It depends what the system boundary is, right? If the system is the web, then the archive is part of the web. Or you could say it's a different system, which makes perfect sense. I mean, both are true.
So it depends on context.
It depends. Yeah, it depends on system boundary, and it depends on externally referenceable by a given locator. Here, the thing really is that if we think of it as the grand system, is external referenceability in the absolute, the archive is still referenceable, but in it's not referenceable by the locator. So there's two external there's two indexical references and externally referenceable. That includes the archive.
I think that's fair enough. I mean, these are edge cases. I mean, the edge case, more languages needed to make clear what you mean. That's normal. And I think the fact that we could use it right now to write this up is a good sign.
Yeah, the other nuance is, what do we mean by externally referenced by a given locator? Here it stopped being referenceable by this locator, but I think that's intuitively clear. I don't know if it needs a note, because that's in a way a different term or a different usage of the term. We can say something is referenceable by a locator, but I think it's implicit. It's fine. I'm happy.
I'm not certain I follow what do you mean by that.
Okay, the offline web page that was archived, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's still externally referenceable. We agree on that in both cases, like whether in a different system or in a large enough system. But it's not originally referenceable by the given locator, by the original locator. So that's a different concept. There's externally referenceable in the absolute, and there's externally referenceable by a given locator, which is a different concept.
That depends. Like, I mean, the locator, I would argue, could be used as a locator in the archive. Oh no, because you would need the point in time of the web page as well.
Correct.
So it's the locator is not complete. Yeah.
Correct.
I don't think we need to talk too much more about it until it pops up.
I agree.
Should I keep these two addendums here or just remove them? Yeah?
I think they're good.
Timothy, where does it leave you?
You can mark me as in agreement.
Which brings us to the structurally linkable adjective. We try to start to define and we struggle a bit with. So
and we're not. Yeah, this is not. We're not happy with it.
Yeah, but in short, in reference, we're trying to define the thing where a claim can be used, for example, as part of an argument. Like, what does it mean? Can we give that thing an adjective, like a definition that can be used as part of an argument? Like, when is that allowed and not allowed? When is it? And then the suggestion here is structurally linkable. So that you could use language like claims should not immediately be structurally linkable to arguments. They first need to be approved, or something like that. So that's what we're trying to pinpoint here. The current working description is something which can be referenced as part of other things so that the whole carries additional meaning. This is overly abstract. But maybe that is what it means. That's what we're trying to figure out.
And the reason we want to define this is that we are like, is it independent from external referenceability? When can we have one without the other on both cases? I think it's a full.
Yeah, I think that's indeed also a question that popped up. Is reference here external? External referenceable or not?
The point I was struggling to make is that a thing can be structurally linkable even if it's not referenceable, and vice versa. They're independent concepts, they're orthogonal concepts, but we need to define the concept, say it's orthogonal.
Yes.
And maybe it's not orthogonal, maybe there is a dependency.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to pinpoint. And what we found out is with these definitions, it was really hard. But so yeah, the things that match a definition, I think we wrote down what I just stated. A claim can be linked as a supporting claim to another claim in order to represent an argument. So the additional meaning here is the arguments. And the things being linked are, well, two claims or a claim and an argument. There's different ways of representing this. A definition can be included as part of a claim in order to disambiguate it from other claims. So this is some type of composition. Evidence as, oh yeah, we added this one because we agreed that this type of language could equally be used in the material world. Evidence as pinned cards on a corkboard between which strings of wire can be strung to represent causal connections, for example.
Yeah, counterexamples. When is something not linkable? And that's part of the struggle, right? It's obviously, if a proto-claim is not acceptable, we won't want to link it. And then we said, no, maybe that's not true, because maybe we want to indicate that it's linkable before it's accepted, to say that when it's accepted, it will be a pro or a con. So that's part of the struggle. So maybe something we're ending with is maybe structurally linkable. And I'm getting, there's something I said at the end of last day, which I now forgot, which is maybe this is not an adjective. Maybe this is a system property rather than a property of a claim. Is the system willing to do that link or not? Yeah, it's a system property. Maybe it's not an adjective. Maybe that's why.
I mean, why
why
couldn't a system property be an adjective? I don't see how that.
It's in the sense that it's not a property of the thing. You could have the same thing in a different system, not have the same linkability. And that means.
Yeah, but we're not, I don't think any of these adjectives here are saying anything that a system or something should or shouldn't be. It's more like the language to talk about whether.
Yeah.
So I don't think that makes sense.
Well,
I think the bigger part is to which degree is structurally linkable interlinked with the thing that started this whole conversation with accepted.
What I'm trying to say is, if I'm thinking of counterexamples, I cannot think of a counterexample. Why? Because the fact that something can or cannot be structurally linkable is not a characteristic of the thing, but a characteristic of the system. The system is able to structurally link something or not. But
yeah, but that's how you could use the adjective. So then as.
Well, does not match definition, anything in a system that cannot do the link. So, see what I'm saying there? There's something
So that's
fishy
correct.
there. There's something very fishy in that definition.
I mean, my understanding is this term came up as creating a definition for what I was calling usable. Right? You want to say like a contribution is not yet usable.
Yeah.
So maybe structurally linkable.
No,
maybe it's not the right word. Usable is very specific to a specific case, right? A usable claim or whatever.
Yeah, usable for what as well, right?
It's the accepted, which is close to your usable. The question, like the point I was trying to make is that maybe something can be structurally linkable. Maybe we can accept linking something before we know it's usable. As to say, here's a claim. We don't know if the claim is good enough yet, but I think it's a pro. I think it's a con.
To which degree is it then different from externally referenceable?
Because it need not be externally referenceable. It's just referenceable. It doesn't have to be. It's linkable. I did not say it's exposed.
So it can be internally referenceable.
Yeah.
I mean, but.
And that's in a way. Go ahead.
I'm getting the feeling that we're going the wrong way with like trying to come up with a general adjective. Maybe we should just focus on a specific case and come up with a word for that specific case.
The specific case we came from was an accepted immutable claim.
The use case I came from was, I may want to propose that a claim is supports another claim, before the first claim is known to be usable. That's my use case.
Yeah, I think that's encompassed by externally referenceable. I mean, if you can say that you can reference a claim to another claim.
It's the
Yeah, I would
external.
question what you mean by usable then, because the way I was using usable was exactly, oh, you can turn it into an argument. You can create a claim, and before anybody accepts it, you propose an argument using that claim.
No, okay. What I mean by okay. What I mean by usable is that if you use it as part of an argument, you get a sound argument. You get a well-formed argument, as opposed to if you put something there. If it's not even a claim, you can propose it as a pro, in my view, but that's an unsound link. The link is proposed and unsound because the premise is not even a claim.
But I mean, aren't you at that? Why wouldn't it be structurally linkable at that point? Because I mean, the additional meaning, if you're using this definition that you give by proposing a claim as a supporting claim, the additional meaning is that it's a proposed supporting claim.
It's a proposed, I've been using the term proto-claim.
So the only difference here is what the actual linking means. And then the discussion is, does it mean that it's a valid or sound or perfect or whatever? You can come up with 1,000 ways for linking. You're just saying you want to link, you want to allow structural linking just as proposed claims, regardless of whether or not they fulfill any criteria.
That's what I'm saying.
And then I want to only structurally link once it's accepted, essentially.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yes, exactly. Of course, I want to filter, claims of unknown acceptability, unknown usability status most of the time, but I will want to also look at them when I'm deciding, is that claim acceptable? And it may give me context to know if it's acceptable.
Doesn't this solve it then? I mean, isn't it indeed a decomposition into structurally linkable and accepted?
Yeah, but the problem is I'm saying structurally linkable is, I'm not sure I'm not sure how to define it in the sense that I cannot think of counterexamples. Any counterexample has to do with, oh, the system has chosen not to do it or has not been designed to do it. So it's not a property of the claim.
A specific property of an object would maybe not be structurally linkable. The object is structurally linkable, but not the name field or something.
But I think, isn't a does not match definition exactly something that can't be structurally linked?
What I'm saying is, suppose we're talking about your system. It's if you decide that you won't link unaccepted or unusable claims as premises, which is entirely valid. It's not that the link is not structurally linkable. It's that your system doesn't choose to structurally link such claims. But it's not the ability of the claim to be, or an inability of the claim to be structurally linked. It's a choice of the system. And that's
so in other words, just like we did with externally referenceable, we need to include the system inside of the definition.
What I'm saying is, I'm not sure it's a term.
But how?
I'm not sure it's an adjective.
Is this too different from this one?
Oh yeah.
This also fully depends on the system. So why isn't that a problem here? I mean, an internal data structure is not exposed outside of a system. Like, sure, somebody can go and implement something, so it is externally referenceable. I mean, it's...
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's not wrong.
Maybe we should focus instead on the definition of external, structural link instead of structurally linkable.
Yeah, but again, remember that the reason this is the main one we wanted to go to, right? The intermediate ones were just to this ambiguate. The main reason was because we want to say next. Well, I want to say an accepted immutable claim here. Once accepted, can be used as part of other structures. This is what I would call structurally linkable.
Okay, you know what?
Within the same claim repository, meaning the same system.
Let's focus instead. I've got another proposal. Let's focus on the adjective. I don't know if it's usable or accepted or acceptable, but
yeah.
the one that says, you know, this is good enough so that, as I said, it would form a sound argument if used as premise. Like, and by sound is not the same as relevant, right? I could have a sound argument with an irrelevant premise, but at least the premise is a claim as opposed to a non-claim.
Soundness is even overreaching and demanding more than what the original use case here meant to do. I mean, you're fully. Wait, what's the original definition of sound again?
Yeah, maybe it's not. Maybe sound is not.
I think sound is overreaching of what we're trying to aim for here.
It's an acceptable premise. It means it's like a true premise.
It's both valid and all of its premises are actually true. That's definitely not what we want.
Okay, that's not what we want.
You might mean valid. No, yeah, so that's
even.
also not what we want. So I don't think that's
something weaker than that. Yeah, well-formed. Yeah. How about well-formed?
Well, remember, yeah.
But,
okay, what are we excluding?
I mean, we're having it's an acceptable claim or whatever we're having.
Yeah, we have acceptable indeed. So why wouldn't it be accepted? Because it would essentially be whatever the acceptance criteria are, it is accepted.
Yeah, fair enough. Maybe we want it in adjective form, but I'm happy to reuse that work. It's perfectly valid to use that word. Okay, fair. So let's say we understand what accepted means from that. And maybe we need to play a bit to make it an adjective, but that's not vital. So really we have what we need. The statements are, we may respectively accept or reject the use case of linking proto-claim or a claim as a premise before it is accepted.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we have enough
and that's the
vocabulary
distinction.
At this point.
That's a distinction. So in other words, that then we can express like there's different use cases we want to support. One person might want to support indeed adding the adjectives in one form, and yeah. So I think these are correct. We just.
It would be worth taking a bit of time. I don't know if it should do it offline or now, to take the accepted immutable claim and recast it in adjective form.
That's that we can only do it once we have these defined. But that's a goal. That's on the agenda.
I'm saying to define accepted, let's take the accepted immutable claim definition and recast it a bit in adjective form. Like copy that into accepted, and I think we'll get a good enough version of accepted.
Oh. But do we want the definition of the accepted adjective to depend on the concrete list of acceptability criteria? I mean, wouldn't this list of criteria change? I mean, I imagine that an acceptable argument is something different than an acceptable claim.
You're absolutely right. And an acceptable entity, an acceptable entity definition, or an acceptable predicate is something different. Okay,
exactly. So I don't think we can couple
So accepted is an abstraction over many specific cases.
I think it implies a community process where at some point a community decides that it fits the criteria.
Yeah.
That's essentially what accepted means, I think, to me. And for me, that's an essential step. What you're saying, Mike-Antoine, is for you, that's maybe less essential, and you still want to do things like structurally linking even before things have become accepted. And that's the terminology we can use to disambiguate there.
Yeah, it's not that it's not essential. It's absolutely essential, but it's the question of temporality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So do you think you can write this, or I should?
You can give it a go. Feel free to edit.
Okay. Accept it.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I think you can reuse what we had for accepted immutable claim, indeed, which has been approved by an individual, community approved process, and then probably you can add to fit some predefined set of acceptance criteria, something along those lines. And then the second part we need to drop, obviously.
Examples.
You already have the definition?
Oh, maybe I need to say.
Do we really want to say applies to an entity predicate claim? Why not just something? And it's also recursive in the sense that it uses accepted in its own definition, which is always a bit icky.
Yeah. But here it's we're approved.
Let's see what we said in. Yeah, we used approved as a synonym.
Okay.
It's better than just having a. So we state it has been approved by an individual, community, or community approved process. And concept we haven't defined, so.
Matches. The claim.
Yeah, I mean, this is minor, but if you write applies, it's a description, it's not a definition. I would just say something that has been approved by an appropriate individual or community process. And appropriate is redundant.
Actually, I think that's better. I could give more examples, but let's start with those.
Can I edit?
Yeah, sure.
So if you screen share, I would suggest simply something. I don't see the merit of writing all this. I mean, the example we can keep there, of course, but the examples are exactly what we have here. So the definition I would keep short and concise. I would just write something.
Okay.
If you start with applies, that it's a description, it's not a definition. So do you know what I mean?
Yep, fair enough.
There's something that has been approved by, I don't know what you mean by appropriate. Can I just write individual?
Oh, but no, appropriate. No. It's not appropriate individual. It's appropriate process, which is individual or community. You could put individual or community in parentheses.
But then still, what?
Appropriate applies to process.
But why not just process then? Well, I still don't get why appropriate.
Okay, let's then put appropriate acceptance criteria maybe.
I don't know what you're trying to say. Who does the defining of appropriate? Why is it relevant to this definition?
It's appropriate. Well, first, it's about saying it's appropriate in they're good in general, but they're appropriate to the something. Like the acceptance criteria for a claim won't be the same as the acceptance criteria for an entity and so on.
Corresponding? Are you meaning to say that there's a different set of acceptance criteria for different things that need to be approved?
Yes.
Isn't that corresponding or matching?
In this case, corresponding to this. In this case, corresponding to what? This is why I was not.
Timothy, yeah, well.
According.
I would just remove the word. I mean, there's nothing in there that says it's the same process for everything. It's just
okay.
Something that's been approved by a process.
Okay, then I would add being well.
Yeah, well-formed is also one example. I can probably come up with acceptance criteria that have nothing to do with well-formed.
Well, that's why, hence mostly.
Yeah.
Or notably, maybe.
I mean, I don't mind this addition. Do we want to do the distinction we made before, individual community and community process, or do we just bunch community process in the same as community essentially? I think I'm fine either way. Just observing that before we wrote individual community or community process.
Right. I'm happy to follow the other form. That doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I'm okay with this one.
I'm not okay. I'm not okay with the fact that acceptance criteria includes. It's not obvious that they can vary for different types of something.
Matching acceptance criteria, corresponding. That's what I would naturally write.
The problem is matching, corresponding. It's matching, corresponding to what? And you erase the types to something. Okay.
Does it even matter? Can it even be that two different things share the same acceptance criteria?
Has been approved process according to acceptance criteria according to type after acceptance criteria.
According to, sorry?
According to type.
Type?
No, not there. Acceptance criteria. No. To accept according to acceptance criteria according to type. Or type. Appropriate for a type or appropriate for specific.
I mean, I know what you're trying to say. I just don't see why it's relevant to be.
Because if you look at the examples, they say could be accepted as something. It's always as something. It's not accepted in general. It's accepted as something specific.
Okay, so probably, yeah, okay. Something that has been approved by an individual which have a certain goal in mind.
No.
That's essentially what it is, because I mean, why are these acceptance criteria there? So what you just classified as a type because you're a mathematician. But
no, it's because like I gave, you know, the sun is bright. I gave two examples using the sun is bright to show that in one case it's acceptable, and in one case it can be accepted, and the other case it's most likely not to be accepted, because it's.
Is it always a contribution?
Yes, that's not the point. Okay, save, and I'll try to write, because right now having to tell you what I want is.
I mean, except by type. I know you want to do this.
Yeah, and it's not enough. I'm fishing for formulation, and fighting for the pen is not helping. Can you stop sharing? So at least I'll have you participate in my process. I'm the one who's unhappy. Let's see if I can come up with something that works for you. Something.
I think something for me, it actually can be narrowed down. I would say a contribution by a user. Because what do we have examples of things that need to be accepted that aren't contributions? So that already narrows it down a bit.
I need to think. Something that has been approved.
Type of contribution, and then you can link it back to the original thing. The problem is we have no link between something and what you're trying to link to a type. So if you want to match that, then for a specified something is essentially what you're trying to say. No, your specified type is linking back to the type of something, right?
Yeah.
That's not clear.
No, I know, but it's because it's two things really. Accepted as is a relational property. It's saying there's a something, and it's what it's being accepted as.
Yes.
It's
yes. Yeah. So it's being accepted as, but that's the criteria, as matching the criteria.
For a specific type, which
you're
is
saying that a type has criteria, but is it essential for this definition?
Yes, it is, because what I'm saying is the type is not inherent into something. So we cannot just say it's a separate, it's a second variable, it's a second parameter.
No, but the something is that the something is whatever intends to fit those accepted criteria. It doesn't necessarily do. It's only once it's been approved.
Yeah, that's
accepted as that the community has decided it matches these acceptance criteria.
But vague disagree here, because the something.
Let's start by renaming something. I think that's a bigger problem. What is something? According to me, it's always going to be a contribution by a user. And then maybe let's make that more specific to, if you want to include types, then let's add a specific type of contribution, and then you can relate type back later there. I would say a specific type of contribution with corresponding acceptance criteria, which have been approved by
a contribution by user and its intended type that's been approved as confirming acceptance for that specified type mostly.
So yeah.
And then I'm willing to remove mostly having.
So how about, and I think this is the same, but for me it reads clear, a contribution of a contribution of a type with corresponding acceptance criteria that has been approved by an individual community or community process as conforming to those criteria, or something along those lines. Either way, now we're refining.
What are you saying? I'm trying to think. Maybe it may make sense. The contribution, repeat it, please.
The thing is that the contribution and the acceptance criteria go hand in hand. So let's start with that.
And that's what I was refusing all along, yes.
What? No?
Yes.
You're saying contribution and its intended type, and then you're saying
yes, but I'm saying it's a pair. They go hand in hand, but it's a pair of two distinct objects. Well, okay, it's dependent on what we mean by hand in hand.
You write here as conforming to acceptance criteria for that specified type.
Yes, yes.
So you can move that for that specified type to the start of the sentence. I mean, you can fit it in there somehow, like saying something, a contribution which has acceptance criteria, a contribution of a type which has expected acceptance criteria, or something along those lines. I don't know why for me that's clear, but
I'm not sure. The specified criteria are
I like this. Leave it. Can I reread? I mean, it's already way better than before. A contribution by user with an explicit intended type, and that's a bit vague at that point, but it's fine. It's as vague as something that has been approved by an individual community as conforming to acceptance criteria for that intended type, and then type is simply a variable placeholder in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with this. I mean, I think it's a bit verbose, but we can always refine it. I think it's clear.
Good. I'm happy with it at this point.
We need to go over examples still. Do we have time? Yes, we have 8 minutes. Let's see. The claim the sun is bright. And by the way, Timothy, we haven't heard from you in a while. Do you understand this current definition?
I do understand it. Yes.
Do you have objections?
As a definition, I don't think so, but let's go through the examples.
Okay. First example, the claim the sun is bright could be accepted by a community as a well-formed claim. I would be more explicit here what well-formed means. We have a couple of acceptance criteria, like non-indexical or whatever, or well, as not spam, or I don't know. We had a couple, right? But yeah, I like the example other than that. As a claim, actually, indeed. As a linguistic claim or whatever, but we had so many, yeah. Designation Albert Einstein could be accepted. Yeah. Does not match. The sun is bright would probably not be accepted as well-formed. Arguments, yeah. Can't we just say like a clear spam example? By Viagra would probably not be accepted as a claim.
Yeah.
That works for me. Edge cases.
By Viagra, wait.
It's a claim. It's you should buy Viagra.
No, it's
you
well,
should buy Viagra.
But if you look at our acceptance criteria for claim, we exclude non-declarative sentences. This is an exclamatory sentence, and
it's an imperative sentence.
Yeah.
It's not a claim. It's a performative.
So maybe
Okay.
add that spam and not a declarative sentence as in the expected acceptance criteria. That's what's missing. But I mean, we know because we've talked about this before.
Spam entry. I mean, I would just be generic. A spam entry should not be accepted.
True.
As a claim.
Yeah. But are there edge cases to our current definition that make it useless or not as useful as it could be?
I think all the edge cases will be about the fact that the community process will have what happens when the claim's validity is disputed. That's an edge case.
But that means that the community process says that it's disputed, so it's not accepted.
No, what happens if it,
Fair.
It kind of ends discussion, right? What happens if somebody comes in later after it's been accepted, right?
Yeah, I think it depends on
an
the
end state, a permanent end state for something that may not be so permanent.
Well, we never said it was permanent. It's
No.
like referenceable. At some points, it stops being
Right.
referenceable. It stops being accepted.
Yeah, so
by
it
the
depends
process.
on the process, and then we can start talking about different forms of
Yeah,
processes. And on Socrates, indeed, I want to have an immutable acceptance more or less, almost immutable acceptance. And that's why we might disagree.
But it doesn't change anything to the definition. It's the question is, do we want immutable acceptance to be immutable in our system?
I think it works. I would drag it to proposed.
Yeah. You know, I just keep reflecting on the fact that
you can check off my name, by the way.
Are going through the steps of, you know, what should happen efficiently in the CDL at some point.
That's the wrong card, Mike Antoine.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. Absolutely.
Sorry, Timothy.
No, I just keep reflecting on like what this would be like in the canonical debate itself. I mean, basically what we're doing here is we're creating definitions to be used in claims that the system should do something or not, right? Because that's what we're not to an actual debate yet. We're just putting together the terms we're going to use to debate, right? So it's fascinating to me. And I'm fine with that as a definition, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it gets used. And I'm looking forward to the moment when we need distinguishing claims to say, well, you know, I think accepted should be done this way, or I think, you know.
But we just said it. I think the fact that indeed now I can more easily say, and you guys will more easily understand what I mean, that I want my claims that I accepted to always stay accepted. I want acceptability to be immutable, essentially, in Socrates.
No, yeah,
I think that's something we disagree on.
Yes, I agree, and
so
we're setting up the definition for that disagreement.
Yeah, it's progress. We can express these things less ambiguously.
Is anyone interested in giving a shot at structurally linkable? I think this is a nice wrap up for today. I think we should just keep it at that, but it would be nice to speed up things and have something proposed by next time. For
my vote is let's eliminate it.
It might be necessary, yes. Yeah, we could try to move on instantly to seeing how these adjectives fit into our current compositional nouns. Yeah, we can do that next meeting.
By the way, Tim, are you okay with accepted in this? Should I check you?
Yeah, check me.
Good. Then should I move it to consensus or
wait for next meeting for Felix and Joshua? Seems like they
absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
Otherwise, they don't know. They have to look at it.
Yep, I approve. Good.
Okay.
Progress. Ciao, ciao.
See you tomorrow. I think I might have. I'll let you know on Slack. Right.
Okay.